Castellanos, so that basically hearing this is not the beginning of the end, it's the end of the beginning.
Groundhog Day all over and over again. But interesting things happened today in that interview, George. The defense of Comey as leaking information was not that strong from Preet Bharara. And the question becomes, wait a minute, are we setting a precedent here? Are we saying it's okay for anybody who worked at the FBI to leak their work product? What about other places
Here's
in
why,
government?
I get the idea of questioning James Comey to some degree, but Donna Brazil, let me bring this question to you. Here's what I don't get. James Comey said he leaked this information to get a special counsel. Special counsel is the worst nightmare for Donald Trump. He got what he wanted, so in the end, isn't that more dangerous for the president?
Well, I think this tells you where we are. No. Not if Donald Trump did not collude with the Russians. Assume for a moment this heretical idea. What if Donald Trump didn't do it? What if the campaign didn't do it? I think there's proof that Donald Trump and the campaign didn't collude with the Russians. They had no campaign.
Oh, I agree.
There was no organization, no fundraising. What did that? It was Donald Trump giving speeches.
The problem is that Richard Nixon didn't commit the Watergate burglary. Right? Donald Trump, it doesn't matter if fundamentally they're going to investigate all that, but in the end, what catches presidents and what catches people is not the actual crime or the criminal thing. It is what happens.
That's different.
Look, Director Comey is now a private citizen. He's no longer a government employee or a public servant in that case.
But he was when he created these materials.
Absolutely, and I don't think there's any criminality of him providing his side, especially when the President of the United States called him a nut job. That's all over the national newspapers. He shared it with a contemporary friend at the law school. But look, George, people watch the hearing as if this was the Super Bowl. I think it's just the beginning of a kickoff in a larger game. And as Director Comey said in the hearing, I think the most emotional part of the hearing was that he said, this is not about Republicans or Democrats. This is about our American democracy being attacked. And I think the sooner we can get back, you talk about a distraction, I think the pivot should be, we should focus on what do we do to prevent this from happening again. And the president has not expressed any outrage. Well, he has not expressed any outrage about what happened last year.
Americans all over this country are focused on this and watching it. You know, we announced in my district that we were going to have a community meeting in a district adjoining mine. And in 2 days, we ended up with 250 people in the room. And they weren't just talking about health care, although they were talking about health care. They were talking about whether they could trust their president. And so there is a lot of outrage. On June 3rd, there was the March Against Truth. Literally, all kinds of people really
That's one of the questions I wanted to bring to Sarah, because one of the things you saw, the Republicans on the committee, many tried to put the best face possible on the president's actions, but also, to a person, they seemed to vouch for the credibility of James Comey. In the long run, that's got to hurt the president.
Look, I think going after Jim Comey is the wrong strategy. Alex is right. You know, there appears to be no evidence the president colluded with Russia.
No,
the president, well, the president, you know, didn't obstruct justice. At least James Comey said so in his testimony.
Oh, he said he couldn't reach that conclusion.
He couldn't, but at that point, there was no strong evidence that he obstructed justice. But every day we talk about James Comey means we're not talking about tax reform, healthcare. So my issue is strategically, this is an undisciplined president, and if he doesn't get disciplined, he's going to be in a much worse situation.
Obstruction basically is whether you corruptly influence, obstruct, or impede the administration of justice. You tell a chief law enforcement officer, back off my friend, or I hope you back off my friend, and then when he doesn't, you fire him. Clearly, that fits the behavior of obstruction. The question of whether or not you can prosecute the president is open, but the behavior is obstruction.
George, remember why Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon? To spare the nation. Because there are bigger issues here.
That's a separate question.
If Donald Trump didn't do it, if there was no collusion, then he's not. If Donald Trump, if there's no collusion, he wasn't obstructing justice. He was trying to accelerate justice. He said to Comey, look, it would be great if people found out if there were satellite people involved here in this. Assume for a moment that the fundamental basis of this is What if Donald Trump didn't do this? What if there wasn't collusion? You want the cloud removed from your presidency. You have all authority to fire this indecisive FBI director.
There's a lot of things that Richard Nixon didn't do a lot of things, but the things he did do was an obstructed investigation that was going on and then covered it up in the course of that. But I think Preet made two good points. One, he made news today, which I'll second, I think. But the first point he made is, listen, the problem for Donald Trump and the administration and Corey Lewandowski and all that, if this is a question of he said, which is what they keep to making, you have on one side somebody that we know, even his best friends, demonstrated he is an habitual non-teller of truth. Donald Trump versus somebody. There is another word for that. You can use the L word. And then there's the other side is somebody that has habitually told the truth and offended Democrats. He offended the Clinton folks. He offended the Democrats. And he's offended Republicans. But in the end, and he's made mistakes, but in the end, this guy, James Comey, habitually tells the truth and stands up for that. The second
thing actually, you could argue, even when he told that story about leaking to the New York Times, it did make him look good.
Right. The second part of this is Preet related what happened with his relationship with Donald Trump. And it's eerily familiar to what happened with James Comey. And when he said, after he said, we talked among our staff, when he got a call, after getting calls when he was president-elect, he got a call as president, they decided it was not appropriate. He wasn't going to return the phone call. He was fired 22 hours later.
This is why the political graveyard is littered with businessmen. Because, you know, he doesn't seem to know the rules of the road when serving in the White House relative to the Justice Department. And, you know, I realize he's been criticized for that defense, the ignorance defense, and it's not going to help him if he ends up, you know, in a legal situation. But I do think there's truth to it, which is that...
Well, except Preet made the point that he knew full well about Justice Department protocol when he was attacking
But in business, you build relationships across the spectrum. And what he's doing is building relationships, and he didn't seem to understand
his benefit.
But didn't seem to understand why that was inappropriate.
Is no snowflake. He's no naive person. He's been around the block. He knows what he's doing. But George, I question whether the use of the term leak is appropriate. I see Comey as a whistleblower. I see him as revealing information. He's admitting it. He's stepping up to the plate and said, I wrote the memo. Yes, it was me. I'm the one who made sure it got out. And he was just making sure that as he is being defamed, and his department was too, that there's another alternative.
Don, another tweet from the president this morning, coming with right after the Comey one. He said the Democrats have no message, not on economics, not on taxes, not on jobs, not on failing Obamacare. They are only obstructionists, all caps. Is there a danger of this becoming the Democratic agenda?
First of all, I don't think the Democrats are overreaching. I mean, this is about the integrity of our democratic process. It's about what happened in 2016. To suggest, as Donald Trump constantly put out, that somehow or another this is sour grapes. This is not sour grapes. This is about the country being attacked by a hostile foreign government, and Donald Trump basically only caring about himself. The Democrats, I think, look, we have an election in a couple of days in Georgia. Georgia's 6.
Sure do.
The candidate there, John Ossoff, is doing really good. Democrats have been outperforming Republicans and outperforming Hillary Clinton by 11% in the last 6 elections that we've had, these special elections. I think the party is on message now. The party gets what we need to do in the future, and I'm thankful for your leadership.
Get the last word.
I'm grateful I'm out of it.
Also, we got resistance summer going on. We are moving out all over the country. We're knocking on doors.
My friend Donna to beware. I've been a member of the party of no. Look where it got us.